afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. Saudi Arabia places a number of Hezbollah leaders and investment companies on its terrorism list due to their involvement throughout the Middle East. Prime Minister David Cameron argues his case to MPs for Britain to join airstrikes in Syria ahead of a vote expected at a later date. And Germany will deploy Tornado reconnaissance jets to support France in the fight against ISIS in Syria, according to a senior lawmaker for Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservatives. Good afternoon to all our viewers. Saudi Arabia is placing a number of Hezbollah leaders and investment companies on its terrorism list due to their involvement in operations throughout the Middle East. The Saudi Interior Ministry announced in a statement that 12 Hezbollah leaders and officials have been placed on the list. It stressed the kingdom will continue on combating Hezbollah's terrorist activity through all possible means. It added it will continue with this mission with its partners throughout the world to emphasize that no country should remain silent over Hezbollah's militias and its practices. The Interior Ministry says Hezbollah has long sought to spread chaos and instability, launch terrorist attacks, and perform criminal acts throughout the world. Tensions have been high between Hezbollah and the kingdom over recent developments in the Middle East, most notably Saudi Arabia's airstrike campaign against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. Health Minister Wael Abu Faoud emphasizes that the security and economy situation in Lebanon compel party leaders to reach a political compromise to end the 18-month-long presidential deadlock. He said, "We approve any collective national settlement." He told reporters after meeting with Kataib party leader MP Jmayil at the latter's residence in Big Faya. The Progressive Socialist Party leader said that it's clear the name of the Muawara movement leader, MP Slimane Fanjiyeh, is proposed for the presidency. They are still discussing the possibility. Abu Faoud says that contacts are ongoing with the Kataib party to bridge the gaps. Fanjiyeh's name emerged following his reported meetings with former Prime Minister Saad Hariri in Paris last week. However, officials from both sides have denied any such meeting took place. Prime Minister David Cameron argues his case to MPs for Britain to join airstrikes in Syria ahead of a vote expected at a later date, with signs of opposition weakening after the Paris attacks. Cameron argues that there was a legal basis for intervention for self-defense because of the threat posed by the Islamic State jihadists at home. And he said Britain should not subtract its security to allies.
We shouldn't be content with outsourcing our security to our allies. If we believe that action can help protect us, then with our allies, we should be part of that action, not standing aside from it. And from this moral point comes a fundamental question. If we won't act now, when our friend and ally France has been struck in this way, then our allies in the world can be forgiven for asking, if not now, when? Working with a new representative government is the way to eradicate ISIL in Syria in the long term. But can we wait for that to happen before we take military action? I say we can't. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. There will not be a vote in this House unless there's a clear majority for action, because we will not hand a publicity coup to ISIL. But, Mr. Speaker, we do face a fundamental threat to our security. We can't wait for a political transition. We have to hit these terrorists in their heartlands right now. And we must not shirk our responsibility for security or hand it to others. Mr. Speaker, throughout our history, the United Kingdom has stood up to defend our values and our way of life. We can and we must do so again. And I commend this statement to the House.
Without credible or acceptable ground forces, isn't the logic of an intensified air campaign mission creep and Western boots on the ground? Can he today rule out the deployment of British ground forces to Syria? In the light of the record of Western military intervention in recent years, including Iraq, Afghanistan and Libya, does the Prime Minister accept that UK bombing of Syria could risk more of what President Obama called unintended consequences, and that a lasting defeat of ISIL can only be secured by Syrians and their forces within the region?
We're not going to deploy British combat forces. We think actually the presence Western boots on the ground in that way would be counterproductive. That is one of the things I think we have all collectively across the House learned from previous conflicts, and we don't want to make that mistake again.
President Vladimir Putin says that Russia has not received any apology from Turkish leaders over the downing of a warplane, nor any proposals to compensate Moscow. We still have not heard any articulate apologies from Turkey's highest political level, nor any proposals to compensate for the harm and damages, nor promises to punish criminals responsible for their crimes, Putin said at the Kremlin in televised remarks. The Russian leader added, quote, "We believe treacherous stabs in the back from those who are considered partners and allies in the anti-terror fight to be absolutely inexplicable." He spoke ahead of talks with French President François Hollande, reiterated his call for the creation of a broad coalition to fight the Islamic State group, which controls large parts of Syria and Iraq. Syrian Special Forces launched an operation behind enemy lines to rescue the surviving crew member of a Russian warplane downed by Turkey, according to Syria's Al-Watan's newspaper. 11 members of an elite unit of the Air Force Intelligence Service and a translator led by an officer infiltrated 3.4 kilometers behind enemy lines in the Al-Atira region on Tuesday and recovered the airman, according to the pro-government newspaper. Syrian forces launched the operation after Turkey downed the Russian jet on Tuesday morning, forcing the two-man crew to eject over rebel-held territory. According to Al-Watan, the team set out in late morning from the Hmeim air base in Latakia, where Russian forces are concentrated. The plane's pilot had already been killed by rebel fire as he parachuted down by a Russian drone, spotted navigator Konstantin Murakhtin in hiding on the ground. Germany will deploy Tornado reconnaissance jets to support France in the fight against ISIS militants in Syria, a senior lawmaker for Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservatives confirmed. Germany will be a more active contributor than it has been until now, according to defense expert Henning Otte for the Christian Democratic Union. Not only will we bolster our training mission in northern Iraq, but we will, among other things, make a contribution to the fight against ISIS terror with Tornado reconnaissance jets. Germany is also considering sending a frigate and refueling planes as part of the mission, according to coalition sources. Coming up next, a Thanksgiving message from President Obama about Syrian refugees. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news here on Future Television. Members of the city of Chicago's Black Caucus described the video depicting the shooting of a black teenager as shocking and called for the resignation of Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy and an independent investigation. A white Chicago policeman was charged with murdering 17-year-old Laquan McDonald on Tuesday, hours before authorities released the graphic video showing McDonald away from officers as he is shot 16 times. Council member Roderick Sawyer called the video shocking. The footage of last year's shooting, taken from a camera mounted on the dashboard of a police car and made public under orders from a judge, prompted mostly peaceful street demonstrations in Chicago. Council member Howard Birkin said that the caucus is calling for Superintendent McCarthy's resignation or dismissal. The lawyer for Jason Van Dyke, the white Chicago police officer who is charged with murdering McDonald, said his client feared for his life and that the dashcam footage released is unreliable because video distorts images. U.S. President Barack Obama is urging Americans to show generosity to Syrian refugees in his Thanksgiving message, reminding them that the pilgrims who came to America in 1620 were themselves fleeing persecution. Obama's plan to accept 10,000 refugees from Syria become a lightning rod for political criticism after attacks claimed by ISIS killed 130 people in Paris 2 weeks ago. The United States is leading an international coalition fighting the group in Syria and Iraq. Since the Paris attacks, Americans now identify terrorism as the most important problem facing the country. The U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill to suspend the refugee plan and intensify refugee screening measures before lawmakers left Washington for the Thanksgiving break. Several Republican candidates for the November 2016 presidential election have also said the refugees pose a risk.
Hi, everybody. In 1620, a small band of pilgrims came to this continent, refugees who had fled persecution and violence in their native land. Nearly 400 years later, we remember their part in the American story, and we honor the men and women who helped them in their time of need. Thanksgiving is a day for food and football, and for hoping the turkey didn't turn out too dry. But it's also a day to count our blessings and to give back to others. A reminder that no matter our circumstances, all of us have something to be grateful for. Maybe it's good health, a new addition to the family, or a child taking a next step toward college or a career. Maybe it's a new job or a long overdue raise. Maybe it's something as simple and as important as the chance to spend time with the people who matter most. Of course, every American can be thankful for the chance to live in a country founded on the belief that all of us are created equal. And as president, I'm thankful that I get to see the best of America every day. The courage of our troops and veterans, the resilience of our families, and the basic goodness of the ordinary people who call this country home. On this uniquely American holiday, we also remember that so much of our greatness comes from our generosity. There's the generosity of Americans who volunteer at food banks and shelters, making sure that no one goes hungry on a day when so many plates are full. There's the generosity of Americans who take part not just in Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but Giving Tuesday, recognizing that in the holiday season, what you give is as important as what you get. And I've been touched by the generosity of the Americans who've written me letters and emails in recent weeks, offering to open their homes to refugees fleeing the brutality of ISIL. Now, people should remember that no refugee can enter our borders until they undergo the highest security checks of anyone traveling to the United States. That was the case before Paris, and it's the case now. And what happened in Paris hasn't stopped Americans from opening their arms anyway. One woman from Pennsylvania wrote to me to say, "Money is tight for us in my household, but I have a guest room. I have a pantry full of food. We can do this." Another woman from Florida told me her family's history dates back to the Mayflower, and she said that welcoming others is part of what it means to be an American. Nearly 4 centuries after the Mayflower set sail, the world is still full of pilgrims, men and women who want nothing more than the chance for a safer, better future for themselves and their families. What makes America America is that we offer that chance. We turn Lady Liberty's light to the world and widen our circle of concern to say that all God's children are worthy of our compassion and care. That's part of what makes this the greatest country on earth. I hope that you and your family have a wonderful Thanksgiving, surrounded by loved ones and full of joy and gratitude. And together, may we all play our own small part in the American story and write a next chapter that future generations can be thankful for. From the Obama family to yours, have a great Thanksgiving.
To all our viewers in America, happy Thanksgiving. On this note, let me remind you of our headlines. Saudi Arabia places a number of Hezbollah leaders and investment companies on its terrorism list due to their involvement in the Middle East. Prime Minister David Cameron argues his case to Britain, joining airstrikes in Syria ahead of a vote expected, with signs of opposition weakening after Paris. And Germany is to deploy Tornado reconnaissance jets to support France in the fight against ISIS militants in Syria, according to a lawmaker for Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservatives. Those are your November 26 headlines on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal signing off. Have a good night, everybody.